I think we've seen a new vitality, a new vigor, a new involvement, a new outreach coming from the Illinois Republican Party ever since on a very hot August day, our chairman said, I'm going to run for governor or senator or do something else. People looked around the room and they said, Pat Brady, you should be our chairman. Pat Brady answered that call. He's been answering that call ever since. And today we are going to hear about today's Illinois Republican Party in the tradition of Abraham Lincoln and Ronald Reagan from Pat Brady.
Thanks, Chris. It's always good to be here. Just digress a second. Jay had an opportunity to attend the Special Olympics event, the fundraiser, a couple months back. And I will commit to you today in celebration of my 50th birthday that Julie and I are going to run the marathon this year to raise money for Special Olympics. I couldn't have been more impressed with what they do. So I think that's a very worthy cause we can all get behind. And I'm happy. This is 10 days of the Republicans here. You're going to start out with me, if I can get this microphone right. And next week, we're going to have Peter Roscom, who is now the Majority Whip, Illinois House of Representatives. United States House of Representatives. Thanks, Chris. Peter's a great speaker, great man, and he's really taken off well in the U.S. Congress. And also, at the end of next week, I think what date is that? What Governor Pawlenty's coming in? February 4th, we're going to have Governor Tim Pawlenty, who I think is going to be a presidential candidate for the Republican Party this year. Governor Pawlenty is from the state of Minnesota, the same state that elected Hubert Humphrey, Walter Mondale, and in its infinite wisdom elected Al Franken to the United States Senate. And as a Republican, he won twice and did some amazing things in the state of Minnesota. Low unemployment, cut the out-of-control spending, did all the things we're talking about doing here in Illinois. He did in Minnesota in the last 8 years. So let's try to pack it in for Governor Pawlenty. My cousin Dan Brady and I were with him over the weekend at one of his meetings, and he's truly an impressive person. I think a guy that can kind of sneak up from the middle of the pack and might very well be our nominee. Chris mentioned we're coming up on Ronald Reagan's 100th birthday. And last week I was out at the RNC meeting with the RNC, and I sat down with Frank Donatelli, who was one of the advisors to President Reagan from his years as governor. And we were talking about President Reagan, just the impact he had. And he made a point to me that, the principles of Reagan, the belief in a limited role of government, the creation of jobs, the belief in the individual, the belief in the sovereignty of the United States and a moral compass, all the tenets of Reagan, the principles of Reagan, still apply today. Maybe in different versions. We didn't have to deal with credit default swaps at the time of the revolution, but the principles that Reagan stood for still exist, and that's what the party's all about. And in honor of that, on February 5th, the day before his birthday, we're having a big celebration at the Hilton, and we're going to have 4 of the 7 or 8 presidential contenders, and Senator Santorum, Newt Gingrich, Mike Pence, and Ambassador Bolton. So you're all invited. We'd like to pack in. We think it's going to be a great event. We've already had a big crowd, and I think it's all appropriate and fitting that we celebrate Ronald Reagan's birthday right here in Chicago. So again, it's always an honor to be here. Dan, my cousin, thanks for coming up. I think they're sick of Brady's up here, but you're next. Everybody else, Senator Radonio, all the supporters of the party, and we had a pretty good year, and it was all due to the support we got from all of you. And so I was trying to put together my thoughts for this speech. I'm thinking, man, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. Elections in Nigeria, you got Hugo Chavez, you've got what's going on in the former Soviet Union and Russia, you've got Pakistan, you've got 2 wars, just all this stuff going on. But the one thing that came to mind to me, the thing that I think should be most important to everybody sitting in this room, is the announcement last week that Jimmy John's is leaving Illinois. Everybody know who Jimmy John's is? Raise your hand if you've had a Jimmy John. I love Jimmy John's. I've been eating Jimmy John's since our days downstate, in 1984. In fact, as I was preparing for this speech, my 10-year-old son Patrick heard that Jimmy John's might leave, and he came back to Julie, my wife, who's sitting here, and said, Jimmy John's is not really leaving, is he? So Jimmy John's is an important part of the state, but the Jimmy John's story is even better than his menu. As the story goes, in the early 1980s, Jimmy John Leotow graduated second from the bottom of his class at Elgin Community College. Not far from where I graduated. With that pedigree, Jimmy John's father told him he had two options. You could join the Army at the height of the Cold War, or you could start a business. So his dad fronted him $25,000 in startup capital, and he founded Jimmy John's. He decided to open a sandwich shop, and his concept was to make sandwiches with the best bread and the best meats. And he made the bread in his house. His business plan was just this: hard work. The first Jimmy John's opened in a garage in Charleston, Illinois in 1983, beginning with 4 sandwiches on the menu and 25-cent Cokes, coupled with the then novel idea of selling sandwiches to students in the dorms or delivery. This Illinois native and resident turned his garage business into a multi-million-dollar enterprise with 1,000 stores in 39 states. I'm guessing it would be difficult to put a dollar figure on just exactly how much Jimmy John's hard work and entrepreneurship contributed to the economy in the state of Illinois. But I'm certain that that number is large. And I'm certain that the University of Illinois appreciated the $5 million that his family donated to the U of I. As we are all well aware, 2 weeks ago, the Democrat-dominated General Assembly passed a 67% personal income tax increase and a 46% corporate tax increase. Governor Quinn immediately signed this into law. Last week, Jimmy John announced he's contemplating relocating his Champaign, Illinois-based corporate headquarters and the 100 jobs it supports to another state. He said he's leaving because he is angry about the tax increases and that the legislature, the Democrat-controlled legislature, has shown a clear lack of understanding about business. In the words of Jimmy John, all they do is stick it to us. Also last week, the city of Indianapolis ran a full-page ads in the Chicago Tribune, which I'm sure you all saw, and other Illinois newspapers, encouraging Illinois business to move to Indianapolis, touting its stable, affordable, and pro-growth economic environment. In plain speak, the ad translates to, our state isn't corrupt and we don't stick it to business. Jimmy John Leotow will not be the last business owner to consider leaving Illinois for another state. I spent last weekend with several Illinois business leaders, and contrary to the assertions of the Democrat Party leadership, the threat of business flight from this state is real. Senator Kirk met with his Small Business Advisory Board over the weekend, and the tax hike was the #1 concern of all these job creators. Senator Kirk said it best. First, we're a corrupt circus. Now we're a corrupt circus with high taxes. And Indianapolis will not be the last out-of-state government poaching our employers. Both represent a reaction against the anti-business, anti-growth climate fostered by Governor Pat Quinn and, yes, Speaker of the House, Mike Madigan. Job-killing and oppressive tax hikes, absent accompanying budget cuts and reform on how the state operates, make us unique in the country. In fact, it has made Illinois unique among states with Democrat governors. Let's look at a couple of examples. In California, like Illinois, the government has spent a whole lot more than it makes. They have a new governor, Jerry Brown. I think it was Mike Grayco that called him Governor Moonbeam. He used to live in a commune, dated Linda Ronstadt, about as liberal as you can get. To his credit, though, Governor Brown has stated that his proposed budget plan is filled with budget cuts. He plans to slash state welfare spending by half, 20% cut from the state university system. He's even taken away state-issued cell phones to state employees. These cuts are, as Brown says, quote, painful, requiring sacrifice from every sector of the state. Another Democrat governor, newly elected Governor Andrew Cuomo, is also a liberal Democrat and son of a liberal icon, Mario Cuomo. In his State of the State speech, Cuomo summed up New York's problem simply, stating, the state of New York spends too much money. It is that blunt and it's that simple. Cuomo plans to ask for deep reductions in spending on big-ticket items like Medicaid spending and government payrolls. When he was asked about raising taxes to help close New York's deficit, Cuomo replied, no new taxes, period. Governors Brown and Cuomo recognize that before you contemplate raising taxes, that state government must do everything in its power to reform the government to live within its means. Compare this to Governor Quinn and Speaker Mike Madigan. They rammed through an historic tax increase. In Illinois, we now have, when it's all included, the 3rd highest corporate tax rate in the country. with no debate on the size and scope of government, no talk of reform, no legitimate discussion of living within our means, and no cuts in spending. In fact, they actually increased the budget. They called it a cap. You know, it's like the speedometer on my car. I can go 160 if I want to die. I usually only go the speed limit, and that's what this cap's all about. But they've actually increased spending in the state of Illinois. The legislation passed through both chambers in the last minutes of a lame duck session. It literally was from days from introduction and passage into law. Thank you, Tom Cross and Chris Radonio. There's no Republican votes on any of that legislation. You know, the funny thing or the interesting thing is it's not like there's a lack of things to cut in the state budget. We've talked about it and debated about it for years. And equally important to me, it's not like the solutions are complicated. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. When another governor from a nearby state told this story about Joe and Steve. Joe was kind of like Jimmy John, kind of got through, didn't do very well academically, but did very well financially. And there's Steve. He was kind of like Roebling, you know, real good student, always looked good, nice tie, funny, good hair. But anyway, they're sitting in a bar, and these guys were buddies, and they grew up together. And Steve, the guy, the Chris, goes, Joe, he goes, you know, what the heck happened here? You're kind of a goof, and now you're flying around in your jet, you're going to the Super Bowl, you're having all kinds of fun. And Joe looked at Chris and said, you know, I got this great idea. I make a product, I sell it for a little bit more than it costs, I sell a bunch of that, and the money just rolls in. It's not complicated, the solutions to the problems in this state. Let's just take one example, and as party chairman, it's not my role to be a policy guy, but I want to give one example. In fiscal year 2010, Illinois spent $2.2 billion on health insurance for state employees, retirees, and dependents, up 22% from the health care spend in 2007. 90% of retired state employees, roughly 70,000 people, pay no monthly premiums for their health insurance. How about asking these retired employees to pick up at least some of the cost? Requiring retired employees eligible for Medicaid to pay between $4 and $50 a month, and younger non-Medicaid eligible retirees to pay between $290 and $500 a month would save Illinois taxpayers roughly $250 million a year. If current state employees were also required to pick up more of the tab for their health care, that would save an additional $70 million a year. Pretty simple, huh? Well, Governor Quinn shouldn't quibble with these numbers. They're his. He proposed these exact budget reforms last year. What happened? It's a civics lesson in how the Democrats run this state. AFSCME got involved and screamed bloody murder. Governor Quinn backed off, and we haven't heard anything on this issue since. As an FYI, AFSCME gave the governor's reelection campaign $450,000 last year. You can do the math on that one. It's not hard to figure out ways to cut spending, but you at least have to try. How about this as an approach for the Republicans to articulate? Honestly balancing spending against revenue, dumping programs that don't produce results, and regulations that get in the way of growth, and establishing a structure of accountability for every dollar spent. The Democrats know this is the appropriate way to run things, they just won't do it. Trust is also one of the most vital factors in fostering a strong business environment, I believe. Those who invest capital strive for certainty. Without it, without knowing that the state's leaders can be taken at their word, that the action they take in their role as elected officials is not in their own self-interest, investing money to create business and employ people becomes too risky. Unfortunately, trust and certainty is non-existent in this state from the Democrat leadership. Here are a couple of examples of what I'm talking about as it relates to Governor Quinn. In August of last year, Bloomberg reported that Pat Quinn's budget director, David Vaught, had predicted that lawmakers in Springfield would raise Illinois income tax by 2% in the lame duck session following the November election. The governor immediately leapt into damage control. Remember this during the campaign? He swore on a stack of Bibles that Vaught was incorrect and that he would support only a 1% income tax increase and that he would veto anything else. In the words of Paul Harvey, you know the rest of the story. The tax hike isn't the only promise the governor's broken. Remember when Governor Quinn replaced Rod Blagojevich in 2009? At his swearing in, Governor Quinn promised to, quote, replace a government of deals with a government of ideals. Fast forward to the fall of 2010 when we learned that the governor had signed a deal with AFSCME to protect union members from any layoffs for the next 18 months. Shortly thereafter, we learned that AFSCME had decided to endorse Governor Quinn for re-election. Another coincidence, I'm sure. How about this one? This one really bothers me. Buying off State Representative Corinne Gordon for a vote on the tax increase. State Representative Corinne Gordon was voted out of office in the November election, but she was still able to cast a crucial vote in favor of Pat Quinn's income tax hike in the lame duck session. Prior to the lame duck session, Ms. Gordon stated unequivocally she would not support a tax increase unless it was clear how the funds would be used. She was a fiscal conservative, concerned about the deficit and debt during her campaign. Now we learn that right around the time Representative Gordon was voting to support the tax increase, with no accompanying explanation of how the funds were to be used, Governor Quinn appointed Ms. Gordon to a seat on the Prison Review Board, a position that pays $85,000 a year. They admit that they discussed a tax hike when Ms. Gordon approached Governor Quinn about the appointment in November. Ms. Gordon and Governor Quinn insisted there was no quid pro quo. But Representative Gordon got a pay raise, a lifetime part-time job with full-time pay, and Quinn got his vote. Sounds to me an awful lot like the government of deals of Rod Blagojevich, and that Pat Quinn assured us was a thing of the past. As a former federal prosecutor, it sounds like something to me that needs to be investigated. Political reporter Rich Miller stated that if Pat Quinn runs for office again in 4 years, he's going to have to put his house up for collateral before anyone will believe his campaign promises. I don't think that's far off the mark. And a governor that the people cannot trust is not good for business in Illinois. That's the bad news. And there is a lot of bad news. But the good news is, on the Republican side of the aisle, we have some good things to talk about as well. Whatever your politics are, and there are Democrats and Republicans in this room, I think we can all agree dominated single-party rule does not work. It has brought Illinois to the brink of financial collapse, and it's failed miserably in Washington, D.C. in the last 2 years. The good news is we made significant progress as Republicans in Illinois in the last election. In November, Illinois Republicans elected a new U.S. Senator, Mark Kirk, along with 5 new Republican congressmen. As Congressman Shimkus likes to joke, we won 5 of our 4 targeted races. On the state level, we elected 2 constitutional officers, Controller Judy Bartopinka and Treasurer Dan Rutherford. We also made gains in both houses of the General Assembly, capturing 6 seats in the House and 2 seats in the Senate. It's not really been reported, but we also had some major gains in some of the downstate county board races in Madison County, Rock Island County, which is not downstate, but another county. We also elected the first African-American sheriff on the Republican ticket in the history of the state in Edgar County. So we had a pretty good year. Actually, if you look at the map of the state of Illinois, it looks kind of like the map of Europe right before we got to the Elbe River. The state is, Bill Brady and Mark Kirk actually did very well all throughout the state, top to bottom. I think these are big accomplishments, and I think as Republicans we should all be proud. But as party chairman, I'm most pleased with 2 things that happened in the last election. First, I think we had a coming together of the party in a lot of respects. We did not have a contentious primary. We had a close primary in the governor's race, and I don't think we can give enough credit to Senator Dillard and Senator Brady for the way they managed themselves or handled themselves after that primary. And once the primary was over, I believe the party was unified. But believe it or not, I speak frequently with and have tremendous relationships with some of our previously most vocal critics. One of them is sitting right here. Jack, good to have you on board. I'm not claiming credit, but even a guy who only did marginally better than Jimmy John in high school can see that as a unified party is a party that can win elections. Second, the Illinois Republican Party, in conjunction with the Kirk campaign, ran the most successful statewide voter identification or victory program in the country. The Illinois Victory Program made over 4.2 million calls and obtained 40 million new pieces of voter identification. Starting from scratch, we beat long-established programs in states like Ohio and Florida, which were built up during the Bush years. More gratifying than the numbers, which were hugely successful, is the fact that all the campaigns, the SRO, the HRO, the side groups, we all worked together. There was no competition and no fighting. As President Reagan used to say, it's amazing what you can get done when no one is looking for credit. And that's what Illinois Victory is all about. Victory will be the model for us going forward. I will close with something that may be a little surprising given the rest of my speech. I'm going to agree with Pat Quinn on something. The governor recently said, "I'm never going to bum rap our state. We have the best of the best and we always will." I could not agree more. Illinois is without question a great state comprised of great people. We are the home to, in my opinion, the greatest city in the world, Chicago. We have outstanding universities and healthcare. Rob Christie from Northwestern, my cousin, came up with my other cousin on the train. Northwestern saved her life, literally saved her life. We have great healthcare, a highly educated and skilled workforce. I know everyone in this room believes in what we can accomplish in this state. But what I believe we need are leaders who can match Illinois in greatness. We need courageous reformers. I believe that we elected some of those leaders this November, and I, for one, will be working tirelessly in electing more in the coming years. I asked for your continued help. With time and a lot of hard work, I have no doubt that we can make Illinois the kind of state that Jimmy John Leotauds of the world would want to enter, not escape. Thank you very much.
Great job. Stay right here. Okay, everybody. Questions. You've got cards down there. We've got some questions coming up. We want to get those up here. We've got questions in all directions, so they're going to come up here in just a second. Thank you very much, Pat.
Thank you, Chris.
That was great. Accept the reference. There we go. All right. It's a little bit like getting the ballots on. Here we go. All right. Good. All right.
Into the mic, Chris.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Sorry, we got to do this with the mic because of the TV. Hello. Eric Cohn says, while Illinois Republicans running for Congress were successful, Illinois Republican candidates for state offices largely were not. In your estimation, what caused the disparity, and what are you going to do to address it? That's a softball question. Typical city.
That's a great question.
Chris, let them see the question.
Oh, sorry, I just read it.
No, it's good. That's a great question. I figured the first question would be, why'd Bill Brady lose? And that's kind of along the same lines. Yeah, our congressional candidates did great. I mean, Joe Walsh won. Bobby Schilling won in that Democrat district in 17. He won by 10 points. Adam Kinzer won by 15. Randy Hultgren. I mean, we had a great run. A couple things. I think they won for a lot of reasons. I think probably the cut of the map. I think a lot of them actually participated more in the Get Out the Vote program than some of the others did generally. But statewide, why did Bill Brady lose? I don't know. You know, it's 25,000 votes. I don't think anybody knows. And you can say, what was this or that? He was too conservative. He wasn't up here enough, or whatever. I think they ran a good campaign. I think they ran a great campaign. And the RGA came in. Everybody came in to help. But you know, you got to take a step back. This is a Democrat state. You know, we're swimming uphill here right now. I mean, this is great to have this many people in the downtown Chicago that are Republicans, but we are in a Democrat state. This is a slog, and it's not going to happen right away. But we made a lot of progress. Going forward, what we're going to do, the sole focus of the Illinois Republican Party for the next 2 years is going to be building out that victory program and getting out the vote. You lose because you don't get more votes than the other guy. It's pretty simple. We need to get more votes. And we've identified more voters in the last 2 years than we've done in the last 7. And we're going to get those votes out. And I think we're right on message. I've never believed this state we're not like Berkeley or Massachusetts. A lot of these Democrats that are here are, I think, much more conservative Democrats, many pro-business, pro-life Democrats. Those are the people that we need to bring back like Reagan did 30 years ago. And I think there are a lot of parallels in that discussion. So long answer to a short question, we're just going to work every day on raising money to turn out more vote for our candidates. And I think we will win more statewide offices in 4 years. And for the next 2 years, the goal is to protect the House, protect the gains that we made in the House of Representatives.
Okay, thank you. Now we've got 2 questions on basically the same issue from Kent Griffith. Kent, former Republican official. Hello, Kent, wherever you are. There he is, right there, all right. And Mark Weiermullen. How important is Chicago for the Illinois Republican Party? And Mark asks, why didn't Republicans run someone for mayor?
Obviously, Chicago's important, and everybody kind of knows the metrics of what we need to do in the city to win statewide. But I think what I think we need to concentrate more, we have to concentrate on the city and do as well as we can. The 30 or whatever percent number we need, we got to get that. But our numbers in the suburbs weren't that great, quite frankly. We need to get our numbers up in the areas where we're strong. I mean, the George Ryan model, whatever the models were 10 years ago, we need to strengthen our suburbs and surround the city. I don't think we're ever going to win the city, but we need to get our numbers up. But it is important. Got Lee Rupus here, who runs the Cook County organization. We've made great strides. The Young Republicans, a lot of groups, and we're working on it. But the reality is we need to get our suburban numbers up first. I think that's where the focus is going to be. Why don't we have a Republican running for mayor? Well, Ron Gidowitz wouldn't run. But we tried to recruit a candidate, and the reality is we needed a Michael Bloomberg, Ron Gidowitz type of candidate to jump in and do that. And for many reasons, I could see why somebody doesn't want to do that. So it's tough, particularly. I'd just like to be one of Rom's donors right now. And there's a chance that this guy may be off the ballot. I think a better than 50% chance he may not even be on the ballot. So, we'd like to have one, but we just couldn't get anybody.
Okay, Deb Gordills is with the Hispanic Voter Initiative, and she also asks about Republican and your outreach to the Hispanic community.
I think I talked to Deb earlier. Yeah, I'm going to put it this way, and I'll just put it bluntly. I really do not like some pigeonholing outreach to any particular group as just a general matter, that we're going to target Hispanics because they're Hispanics. I don't think that works. I really don't. We're going to get people that are Hispanics and work with them because they share the issues that we care about. Hispanics are no different than white Irish guys. I want my kids to get educated. I don't want them to get shot on the way to school. I want them to be able to find a job, and I want to be able to retire someday. So I think if we appeal to any group, including Hispanics, which we're going to spend a lot of time with, we need to appeal to them on those issues. I don't like the pigeonholing, the term coalitions, because I don't think it's almost to me condescending. I want you to vote for my party because I believe my party represents what you believe in. And I think if we stay on that, particularly if we stay on the message of reform, we are the only people in this state, the Republicans and the independents that support the Republican Party, that are going to change the state. If you think Mike Madigan has any interest in this reform or any interest in true budget cuts, or Pat Quinn or John Cullerton or the rest of the crowd down there, you're wrong. They could care less. He's been down there for he's going into his 5th decade. And I know I'm not supposed to blast the speaker, but I will. But that's the problem down there. That's the problem down there. It's single party domination by Mike Madigan and the rest of the crew down there. Unless we fight against it on the issues that are important to us, and I think the issues that the people of this state agree with us on, then we're going to be sitting here in very small rooms with not many Republicans around. So.
Terrific. Last question. Any coming up? Last question for Pat Brady. All right. From Edward Cooper, he asks, how influential in Illinois is the Tea Party, and do you like it or do you fear it?
Tea? No. Listen, the Tea Party was hugely influential, particularly in the congressional races. Maybe that's a difference I should have brought up before. The Tea Party is responsible for Joe Walsh winning in the 8th Congressional District. On both the top and the bottom of that district. They were hugely influential. Do I like the Tea Party? Yeah, I love the Tea Party. You know why? Because the Tea Party agrees with a lot of what I agree with. The Tea Party was not founded on social issues. The Tea Party was founded on economic issues. They believed that this left turn at the national level that the president took us on, and the problems in this state with the finances, that's what they're upset about. We've had meetings all over with Tea Party people, and I like Tea Party people. I hope they like us, and I hope they support our candidates. We're never going to co-opt them. They're never going to call themselves Republicans. They're always going to be, and they're independent by nature. But I think we make a huge mistake unless we accept and respect the role that they just had in this election. There's been 3 state party chairman elections in the last 10 days, and all 3 state party chairmen throughout the country that were elected in those elections were Tea Party members. So I don't have a problem with the Tea Party. They agree with what I believe is important. They believe in reform. They're fed up with the nonsense. They're angry. They're motivated. They turn out to vote, and there's nothing wrong with that.
A warm welcome for the Tea Party. All right, ladies and gentlemen.